Does anyone have any small change? Could you spare 2 yuan for a meal? Just 2 yuan. Does anyone have some coins left? Please, could I get 2 yuan to eat a meal? At Longhua bus station, there is a young woman who hasn't eaten for 3 days. She still hasn't found a job. Is there anyone kind enough to help her out a little? She's staying near Qinghu, Longhua bus station. 3 days without food and still no work. I recorded a short video right here at Qinghu subway station. She's truly pitiful. 3 full days without anything to eat, brothers. If it were me, I'd have collapsed from hunger by now. Even my own customers are telling me that this month has been the hardest time of their lives. Not because they can't sell, but because no one is buying. This year might actually be the best year we'll have in the next 20. Business will only get worse, and the future is becoming more difficult by the day. In Zhangjiajie, tourism has taken a bleak downturn. Every July and August, it used to be packed with tourists like ants, but this year, the tourist areas are completely empty. Is this supposed to be the peak tourist season in Zhangjiajie? So many tour buses are just sitting idle. It's the same everywhere. No movement, no passengers. Lately, many of my middle-aged friends have lost their jobs, suddenly and without warning. Some who ran small shops also had to shut down abruptly. I asked, "Why so sudden?" They said, "I don't know, the company just said it's over," just like that. This year has been too hard. People have no income, no cash in hand. What could you possibly sell to them? The business environment is terrible. Even goods that manage to get sold are often returned. Those with money can barely survive. Those without can't even afford to eat. Everyone talks about stimulating consumption. Yesterday I went out shopping and spent 500 yuan. What struck me the most is, bad business isn't just your problem. Don't even mention small businesses like mine. Even large shopping malls are eerily empty. A 6-floor shopping center had barely any visitors. Inside, only the shop owner or 1 staff member. If you walk in, you might get swarmed by 10 people desperate to serve you. Just look around. How many people do you see? So few that it's heartbreaking. Don't worry, boss. You're not the only one struggling. I feel like the second half of this year will be just as unstable. We wanted to test whether this would be a busy season, but the whole country is empty. Honestly, there's no one. No one goes out shopping anymore. What future do physical retail stores have left? I think they'll be gone in just 2 more years. Honestly, this is something we are powerless to change. The Chinese economy is undergoing a prolonged recession. Every industry is in serious decline. Traditional shops are closing en masse, and unemployment is everywhere. Those who can't find work are wandering the streets. Those who can't make money are struggling just to survive. On the popular Chinese Q&A platform Jihu, one topic sparked heated discussion. With high unemployment and high debt, how are ordinary people supposed to live? One blogger summarized the debt crisis now spreading throughout China, from the central government, local governments, private enterprises, state-owned companies, developers, homebuyers, office workers, and even college students. Everyone is drowning in debt, and no one can untie this knot. Given the current job market, it's simple. Get a job and be exhausted. Fail to get one and starve. I recently helped an e-commerce firm hire for a 3,500 yuan month operations role, but their demands were absurd. Top-tier university degree, under 30, willing to work unpaid overtime, and accept half salary during probation with no social insurance. At least 2 of these conditions are illegal. It's no surprise a fresh graduate in Hangzhou had a mental breakdown after ending up as a subway security guard. That's the reality now. Under a bridge where many homeless people used to sleep, we would leave leftover steamed buns and old clothes in a corner for them to take freely. But in recent years, there's been no one. Today, I went back to check and found the area fenced off with wire mesh, and the ground covered in sharp stones. Right now, there are so many people scraping by with odd jobs and temporary gigs. Some are living off their dwindling savings, while others don't even have that left. Some have had their wages cut, others were laid off, and some quit on their own. Among my friends, many of whom work in government offices, everyone seems lost. We haven't talked for a while, And when we do, it's always bad news. Some merchants have closed shop or gone bankrupt. Those who remain are barely hanging on. The atmosphere is thick with negativity. Even factories have shut down. Air conditioning units have been stripped out. The business environment this year is terrible. Many factories have closed. People really need to cherish the jobs they still have. This factory used to do very well, manufacturing engines, but now it's almost empty. It was once packed with workers. Now barely anyone is left. The equipment has been dismantled, and the factory has officially shut down. A netizen from Sichuan predicted, if this continues, China may return to the hardship of the 1960s. Just surviving will be the top priority. Someone even warned that in 2025, amid economic recession and increasingly difficult times, 3 professions may boom: theft, robbery, and fraud. When people are unemployed, have no way to survive, and expenses keep rising, everything costs money. How will they live? When all other paths are cut off, many will be forced to choose theft, robbery, or scams just to stay alive. One netizen commented, "This situation is beyond fixing. When people don't even have enough to eat, when they're on the brink of starvation, who will still care about laws and morals? In small towns, there are no jobs. In big cities, the unemployed are returning en masse to their hometowns. The result is that unemployment is everywhere, and crimes like street robbery and gang violence will inevitably rise. Right now, ordinary people's lives are growing harder every day. Under these conditions, how is business even possible? Rent is over 3,000 yuan a month, and after working 16 hours a day, some earn less than 200 yuan. Even doing manual labor isn't easy. For those in their 30s and 40s, ages where they should be supporting families, they're earning just 16 or 17 yuan an hour. Even with 10 hours of work, they can't make 200 yuan a day. How can they feed their families like that? If not for the family members supporting them, many would probably find just staying alive to be a burden. If there were another life after this, would you want to come back again? How could I want that? There's nothing left to hope for. I've already given up. A 70-year-old man is still working on construction sites, barely making enough for food. He spends 10 yuan on a meal and doesn't dare eat meat. Without money, where can he eat? He says even if he has 50 cents, he's afraid to spend it. In recent years, as China's economy has declined and unemployment has soared, both young and middle-aged people have been under immense pressure just to survive. Tragedies keep happening one after another. In Hangzhou, everyone is under pressure these days. Just yesterday, someone jumped off a building at the South Railway Station. The day before, someone threw themselves in front of a train at the East Station. I went out to eat with friends last night and saw 2 people who were clearly mentally unstable. One was walking around cursing, the other just didn't look normal. I feel like everyone's mind is on edge now. Maybe it's the work environment, but lately there really are too many people in unstable mental states. One blogger raised the question, do ordinary people still have a future? In an era where everyone is a corrupt official, how can people who can't even afford medical care dare to dream of a future? Wanting a future? That's just wishful thinking. Being able to eat your fill is already considered lucky, but even that is becoming harder and harder. One netizen posted a video interview with a construction worker, an elderly man in his 60s, who said there's no work now, no income, and even having a meal is a problem. Another netizen sighed, "Life for the common people is truly hard. We can't even earn enough for basic living expenses. I'm over 60 and used to work as a mason, but now I can't even get work as an assistant laborer. Most places don't need people anymore, and if they do, they won't hire older workers. Even if you have skills, it's useless. There's just no work. If I manage to earn 20-30 yuan a day, that's already considered lucky, but even that opportunity is rare. Making 30 yuan a day would be great, but it's not realistic. Sometimes you can't even find work that pays 20 yuan. There are days I work 10 full days and only earn 50-60 yuan total, and it's still not enough to feed myself. All we ask for is work and food. The people don't demand much, just being able to eat their fill is enough to keep them from complaining. But now, even that's out of reach for many. With just 10 yuan, I have to ration my food for the entire day. Just plain rice, no vegetables, no sides, and even then, it's not enough. Some jobs only pay 7 yuan. If you ask around, you'll see that others are in the same situation. Everything I'm saying is the plain truth.
Once hailed as the engine of the global economy, China is now engulfed in a multifaceted crisis. From the deserted streets of Suzhou to the scorching rural landscapes of Henan, the Chinese people are grappling with a harsh reality: economic collapse, extreme weather, rampant unemployment, and a government that appears indifferent to their suffering. Stories from street corners, bus stations, and abandoned industrial zones paint a grim picture of a nation once celebrated for its rapid development. The Chinese Communist Party (CCP) seems determined to conceal the growing cracks in society, but the truth seeps through in the heartbreaking stories of ordinary citizens. Extreme weather. Henan, a furnace on Earth. Beyond the economic crisis, extreme weather is pushing the Chinese people into dire straits. In Henan, the summer of 2025 has been recorded as the hottest in history, with 128 high-temperature warnings, 71 of which exceeded 40 degrees C. Surface temperatures reached 83 degrees C, cracking roads, warping vehicles, and heating ponds to the point of boiling fish. A goose farmer in Xinjiang lamented, "5 of my geese died of heat stroke in the pond." In Xi'an, the perceived temperature hit 50 degrees C with humidity over 80%, leaving people feeling as if they were being roasted alive. "My feet felt like they were burning and my mind was foggy," a Henan resident recounted. The heat is not only exhausting but deadly, with reports of deaths from heat stroke in Henan's outskirts. "Hard work doesn't guarantee survival anymore. Sometimes it kills you," one local said. The brutal heat is also straining industries. Power grids are overloaded due to surging demand for air conditioning, while outdoor machinery frequently breaks down. Computers and cars are failing because of the heat. "A bit more salt, and I'd be grilled meat myself," a Zhengzhou resident quipped, masking deep pain with humor. Forecasts predict the heat wave will persist until July 19th, with Henan and Shanxi remaining at its epicenter. "Who dares go out at noon?" "The heat would swallow my dog whole," a Xi'an resident complained. Unemployment and poverty stories, behind the numbers. Across China, from urban centers to rural villages, unemployment has become a nightmare. At Longha bus station in Qinghu, a young emaciated woman, exhausted and starving for 3 days, begged for just 2 yuan to buy a meal, met only with indifferent glances. Her story is not unique. On the question and answer platform, millions ask, with soaring unemployment and crushing debt, how are ordinary people supposed to survive? A blogger summed it up: from local governments to private businesses to college graduates, everyone is drowning in debt. A job in e-commerce operations paying 3,500 yuan a month demands a degree from a top university, an age under 30, unpaid overtime, and no social insurance. At least 2 of those requirements are illegal, but who dares to complain, said a recent graduate in Xiong'an, now working as a subway security guard to make ends meet. The elderly are no better off. A 70-year-old man at a Henan construction site earns just enough for a 10 yuan bowl of plain rice, unable to afford meat. "I don't dare spend even 50 cents, he said, his voice heavy with despair. In big cities, middle-aged workers face sudden layoffs with no warning. "The company just shut down," said a small business owner whose shop was forced to close. Even government employees feel uneasy. The air is filled with negativity. Every time I meet friends, it's all bad news, one shared. Social fractures. From scavenging to crime. Economic decline and extreme weather have driven many into desperation. In major cities, scavengers are increasingly common. Every 10 minutes, 3 people rummage through a single trash bin, a Qinghu resident observed. A former soldier, now surviving by scavenging, shared, "At midnight, who's eating dinner? I just need 2 yuan for a steamed bun." Young people from recent graduates to those with master's and doctoral degrees are joining the ranks of delivery workers or scavengers to survive. "The whole country is doing deliveries," a blogger remarked. Mothers with toddlers soothing their crying children while taking delivery orders under 40 degrees Celsius heat are a common sight on the streets. This desperation fuels grim predictions in 2025. Crimes like theft, robbery, and fraud may explode. "When people can't eat, who cares about laws or morals?" a netizen commented. In small towns, jobs are scarce. In big cities, the unemployed return to their hometowns only to find no opportunities there either. A 40-year-old worker in Suzhou said, "I work 10 hours a day for 16-17 yuan an hour. How can I support a family?" Many young people feel trapped by harsh job requirements under 35, a degree from a top university, low pay, and no benefits. "I applied to 500 jobs. It's like throwing them into the sea." A graduate from a prestigious university lamented. Economic collapse. Suzhou, from industrial paradise to ghost city. Suzhou, once dubbed China's manufacturing capital, now stands as a stark symbol of economic decay. The industrial zones of Kunshan, once bustling with Taiwanese businesses and giants like Foxconn and Samsung, are now filled with empty factories, silent machinery, and desolate commercial streets. "Kunshan is turning into a ghost city," a local resident lamented. Over 20,000 businesses in Suzhou have shuttered in recent years, leaving tens of thousands unemployed. Property prices have plummeted by up to 60%, wiping out the life savings of many families. A resident in Suzhou's high-tech zone shared, "The apartment I bought for 3 million yuan in 2018 is now worth less than 1 million. My life savings are gone." Shopping malls from Guanxian Street to Shilu, once vibrant and crowded, are now dotted with for lease signs and shuttered storefronts. Tourism, a former point of pride in Suzhou with its historic towns like Tongli, has also withered. Even on weekends, the streets are empty. Bars and restaurants are closing one after another. Suzhou is no longer Suzhou. Sighed, a restaurant owner. Government indifference secrets behind the curtain. Amid this crisis, the CCP appears focused on concealing the severity of the issues. Official statistics are often suspected of being manipulated to paint a falsely optimistic picture. For instance, reports claim the average citizen has 107,000 yuan in savings, but in reality, 82% of deposits are held by 2.5% of the wealthy, leaving the remaining 97.5%, with an average of just 13,000 yuan. "These numbers mean nothing to ordinary people," a resident remarked. Consumption stimulus policies are promoted, but empty shopping malls, closed stores, and cautious spending reflect a lack of confidence. No one feels secure enough to spend, one person noted. Local governments are criticized for abandoning the vulnerable. Under a bridge in Qinghu, once a shelter for the homeless, barbed wire and sharp stones now prevent their return. "We used to leave buns and old clothes for them, but now no one's there," a resident said. Meanwhile, banks target the elderly with retirement loans carrying high interest rates and harsh terms. A 67-year-old borrows 90,000 yuan, repaying over 15 years. If they die before 78, their children inherit the debt. "It's cruel," an outraged citizen said. Mental collapse, when the future becomes a pipe dream. Economic pressure, extreme weather, and government inaction are driving people to the brink. Everyone's on the edge, a blogger observed. In Huzhou, suicides at train stations are rising. One person jumped from a building at the South Station. Another threw themselves in front of a train at the East Station. Life is too hard. No one dares dream of the future, a resident said. Even the young, once seen as the nation's hope, feel trapped. We're not picky about jobs, but no matter how hard we try, we're told we're worthless, a university graduate shared. The elderly have lost hope, too. A 60-year-old construction worker in Suzhou said, "No job, no income. Even eating a meal is a struggle. Many survive on odd jobs, scavenging or dwindling savings. If there's a next life, I don't want to come back," a 78-year-old man said bitterly. Conclusion: China at a historic crossroads. The portrait of China in 2025 is one of profound gloom. Economic collapse, extreme weather, rampant unemployment, and government indifference have plunged the people into hardship. From the starving young woman at Longhua bus station to the unemployed workers in Suzhou and the Henan residents battling deadly heat, these are the pieces of a comprehensive crisis. The CCP may try to hide the truth behind a veil, but the voices of the people from social media laments to heartbreaking street stories expose the reality. China stands at a historic crossroads where the future of millions of ordinary citizens hangs in the balance. Can the nation find a way out, or will it sink deeper into crisis? The answer perhaps lies in the hands of those struggling to survive each day. On July 15th, the Shunde District Health Bureau reported a chikungunya outbreak, triggered by an imported case detected on July 8th. As of July 15th, 478 confirmed cases, all mild, have been recorded primarily in Lekongbejiao and Chenkun towns. According to virology experts, chikungunya is transmitted through bites from Aedes mosquitoes, commonly known as flower mosquitoes in northern China. The name, meaning bent over or stooped walking, reflects the severe joint and muscle pain it causes, often leaving victims hunched in agony. Other symptoms include sudden high fever headaches, exhaustion, rashes, and nausea. Symptoms typically emerge 2 to 7 days after a mosquito bite. While a chikungunya vaccine is approved in the U.S., no specific treatment exists for the infection. Most patients recover within weeks, but some endure joint and muscle pain for months or even years. Though rarely fatal, the disease can be debilitating. Once confined to Africa and Asia, chikungunya has spread rapidly since 2004, now posing a risk to over a third of the global population. Regions including the Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe, the Caribbean, and Indian and Pacific Ocean islands are vulnerable. The news has sparked panic online. "It's reached our doorstep," one netizen wrote. "Dengue fever hasn't even faded, and now this. They're spraying everywhere." But here comes another disease. Others expressed frustration. These mosquitoes are mutants, silent bites, insane, itching, huge welts, then they vanish. A Foshan resident shared, "A mosquito bit me this afternoon, and my skin went numb." Another compared it to last year's dengue outbreak. Dengue nearly killed me. Fever burned away my energy rashes, itched like mad joints, ached. I coughed blood. It took weeks to recover. Now this new disease with a fancy name. Give us a break. Some questioned the official numbers. Infection wards are overflowing. How are there only 478 cases? The outcry reflects growing distrust and exhaustion among locals facing yet another health threat. China's infernal summer streets. Scorch above 70 degrees. Homes explode from heat. CCP's failure exposed. China is now engulfed in one of the worst heat waves in recent memory, and its consequences are catastrophic. Between July 15th and 16, temperatures soared above 40 degrees in core cities like Zhengzhou and Xi'an, while ground surface temperatures in several regions surpassed a blistering 70 degrees, a level of extreme heat that has literally shattered homes and tested the limits of human endurance. In Henan's Zhengzhou, the heat has reached unprecedented levels described by locals as the worst since the dinosaur era. A viral video captured the surreal reality. A farmer in Xinjiang mourned 5 geese found dead in a pond, their bodies succumbing to water temperatures estimated at 50 to 60 degrees. "I've never seen anything like this," he said, his voice heavy with disbelief. The scorching sun has warped thermometers and scorched livelihoods, forcing farmers to resort to well water to cool livestock. The heat's toll extends beyond animals. In Zhengzhou's fields, crops have withered under the relentless sun. Farmers working from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. struggle to salvage what remains, their efforts hampered by temperatures that render the ground untouchable. "The crops are practically cooked," one farmer lamented. "If you're out here, you're risking heat stroke." He added that only those desperate, unable to afford even a bowl of rice, would endure such conditions. The region's red heat alert, with temperatures hitting 44 degrees, has made survival a daily battle. Surface temperatures tell a grimmer story. Manhole covers reached 51 degrees C, car seats hit 47 degrees C, and vehicles soared to 56 degrees, while ice water barely stayed at 11 degrees. Across Shandong, Shanxi, Hebei, and Anhui, similar conditions prevail, with battery-powered devices, especially electric vehicle EV batteries, posing a new danger. High temperatures make batteries prone to fires, a Zhengzhou mechanic warned. Once they overheat, they can ignite or malfunction, and it's not rare. Videos circulating online show EVs emitting warnings. Thermal runaway detected. Evacuate immediately. The risk is so severe that drivers are advised to keep air conditioning on to prevent battery failure despite the strain on power reserves. The human cost is staggering. Farmers report that entire fields of crops have perished, with one saying, "The heat's killed everything, our harvest is gone." Another described the grueling labor. "We're out here all day, but it's futile. The crops can't survive this. The desperation is palpable. Only those with no other choice brave the fields, risking their health to save what little remains." Online netizens expressed despair. "This heat is unbearable. If you're out here, you must be starving at home." China's weather service forecasts no immediate relief. While cooler air may ease conditions in eastern regions by July 17th, Henan's heat wave is expected to persist, exacerbating losses in agriculture and infrastructure. The crisis underscores the urgent need for adaptive measures to protect vulnerable communities from nature's wrath. According to state monitoring, the heat wave swept across the North China Plain, northwest China, and parts of the south, with locations in Xinjiang, Shanxi, Henan, and Hubei, breaking historical temperature records. In Shanxi alone, 3 separate cities reported ground temperatures over 70 degrees Celsius, figures rarely seen even in desert regions. The damage is not just theoretical. In Zhengzhou, a resident reported that a bathroom window in his apartment cracked like a spiderweb, not from external impact, but simply from internal thermal stress. There was no sound. "It just shattered from the inside," he told Guangzhou Daily. It must have been the heat. Social media exploded when local reporters fried shrimp and eggs directly on the pavement. Within an hour, shrimp turned red and egg whites solidified, confirming road surfaces in Zhengzhou exceeded 72 degrees C. The topic, Zhengzhou pavement above 72 degrees C, quickly trended online with users mocking Zhengzhou is now Steam City and free solar-powered barbecue. Yet while citizens roast alive, the CCP issues routine weather warnings and propaganda headlines doing little to address systemic failures. The infrastructure remains ill-prepared for climate extremes. Public services are overwhelmed, and above all, the regime remains silent on the broader crisis unfolding. On July 16th, a red alert for high temperatures was issued in Zhengzhou. The China Meteorological Administration warned of continued heat across Shanxi, Henan, Hubei, and parts of Guangdong and Zhejiang, with feels-like temperatures climbing to 45 degrees C. And as if the searing heat weren't enough, extreme weather systems are now on the horizon: supercell thunderstorms, hail, and winds exceeding 11 on the Beaufort scale. While the state-run media assures citizens that temperatures will ease slightly from July 17th onward, regions like the Yellow River Basin, Sichuan, and the Zhanghuai Plain are still bracing for prolonged suffering. The Chinese government has made no real effort to invest in heat-resilient infrastructure, nor has it acknowledged the scale of risk facing over 1 billion people under its watch. Once again, it's the ordinary citizens, not the ruling elite, who suffer under the weight of disaster, incompetence, and silence. A hidden epidemic. HIV's grip tightens. While China grapples with external pressures, a silent health crisis spirals out of control. According to Vision Times, HIV infections have surged, igniting panic, particularly among young people and students now deemed high risk. Official 2022 data reports over 1.2 million cases, 1 per 1,000 citizens. 6 provinces, Yunnan, Sichuan, Guangxi, Henan, Guangdong, and Xinjiang, account for 60% of cases, with Yunnan leading. Over 90% of infections stem from sexual transmission. On June 28th, Dr. Gao, an emergency doctor at Henan Provincial People's Hospital, revealed on Douyin that China has outpaced the U.S. in HIV cases, warning that universities are now transmission hubs. Social media influencers and healthcare workers amplified his alarm-sharing images of overcrowded testing centers and highlighting unreported infections. On July 4th, X posts from Changsha, Hunan, reported a potential HIV and syphilis outbreak with claims of deliberate infections as social revenge. Authorities responded with raids on nightclubs, KTVs, and bathhouses, detaining over 200 people, including 27 women with HIV and 40 with syphilis. Wuhan issued internal alerts to avoid Hunan residents amid rumors of intentional virus spread. Similar fears surfaced in Sichuan and Guangdong. A Sichuan netizen reported 2 HIV-positive cases in a random sample of 20 blood tests, despite no high-risk behavior. Another described a village tragedy: 2 men diagnosed, one a drug user, another a sex worker client, with one dying covered in sores. In Guangdong, some suspect mass screenings conceal organ donor matching, while others blame societal moral decay. Dr. Liu Yan, a Shandong gynecologist, warned in a viral video, "HIV is pervasive, you're surrounded." She highlighted Sichuan and Guangxi's high prevalence, attributing the crisis to CCP corruption, which she says has eroded public health and left youth vulnerable to a rogue virus. CCP policies face intense criticism. Since 2010, foreigners with infectious diseases can enter without HIV testing. Hospitals cannot disclose HIV diagnoses to partners during premarital checks, and patient identities remain confidential even from families. Critics highlight the influx of African nationals, with some claiming 80% of HIV transmissions traced to Africa. Allegations of African students receiving scholarships and study companions fuel concerns about campus spread. This health crisis reflects systemic decay, corruption, secrecy, and negligence, driving a preventable epidemic. Xi Jinping's retreat, a leader's confession. On June 30th, during a rare Politburo study session, Xi Jinping delivered a speech that stunned analysts. Xinhua reported he used self-revolution 12 times a tone Zhongfen of Zhongfen Times called a veiled apology to the CCP. Xi's shift from authoritative to contrite urged all members to embrace self-reform and supervision, implicitly admitting personal fault. This was seen as a gesture to appease party elders and military leaders. Xi chaired the session, introducing rules to shift decision-making to collective bodies, empowering sidelined factions. Scholar Wu Zui noted Xi acknowledged failures from his top-down governance, bypassing consensus, with the Beidaihe meeting nearing where elites shape leadership. The Epoch Times sources claim Xi has lost real power, with Wang Jiao and Vice Chairman Zhang Youxia now leading. Since April 2023 failed, purges have weakened Xi, and his speech suggests a staged exit possibly formalized at the fourth plenary session. Economic meltdown, a liquidation in disguise. In a bold vision, Times article Tai Po Lung argues, China's industrial complex isn't thriving, it's liquidating. He reframes the trade war as a desperate inventory dump. Subsidized electric vehicles, solar panels, steel, and appliances flood global markets at a loss, not as strategy, but survival. Factories relocate to Southeast Asia to evade sanctions masking Chinese origins. Data reveals the strain May exports grew only 4.8%. U.S. exports fell for 2 months. New loans lagged, and M2 money supply surged but remained state-hoarded, starving households and firms. This is a bankrupt nation offloading stock. Subsidies are fading. Overcapacity is unsustainable and trust is collapsing. Po Lung calls China's 1.4 billion person market a trap. Foreign tech is copied, brands dismantled and contracts ignored. Deflation and layoffs spiral subsidies, fuel overproduction, crash prices, and kill demand, creating a self-destructive loop. In Thailand, Chinese dumping halts local innovation, turning businesses into subcontractors. Po Lung labels it economic colonization, but factory closures and stalled subsidies signal an imminent crash. Wang Yi's EU blunder. On July 2nd, Foreign Minister Wang Yi met EU's Kaja Kallas in a heated exchange. Kallas accused Beijing of threatening European security via cyber attacks, election interference, and unfair trade, particularly by aiding Russia's Ukraine war. Wang's admission that China cannot allow Russia's defeat, fearing a U.S. focus on China, stunned attendees per The People's Paper. This shattered Beijing's neutral stance, revealing a strategy to prolong the war to divert U.S. attention. The EU, frustrated by China's support for Russia's military, saw diplomatic goodwill evaporate. Kallas criticized China's rare earth restrictions and market manipulation, demanding compliance with global norms. Wang's dismissive response deepened tensions as the EU bans firms aiding Russia, aligning with U.S. policies. Digital surveillance, a nationwide ID system. On July 15th, the CCP launched a national online ID system mandating real name registration for internet access. Users submit identity documents and undergo facial recognition, linking to 400-plus platforms from social media to government services. The Economist warns of a digital prison amplifying CCP control over speech. Though labeled voluntary, mandatory enforcement is expected, affecting 1.1 billion users. Critics say it blurs public security and civil rights, with users self-censoring to avoid repercussions. A Dongguan resident told the Epoch Times, "Every word is monitored, you never know who's watching." U.S. trade offensive. Beijing's warning. The U.S. is reshaping global trade to sideline China. Bloomberg reports negotiations with Asia and Europe to curb Chinese firms and reroute supply chains. On July 2nd, Trump signed a tariff deal with Vietnam imposing 20-40% tariffs on goods with Chinese components. India may follow, debating a 60% domestic value threshold. Part of Trump's April tariff initiative, these moves pressure Vietnam and Thailand to curb transshipments. China's Commerce Ministry vowed retaliation, but U.S. momentum grows. The EU, a key Chinese EV market, is adopting U.S.-aligned export controls, signaling a global shift. China's crises, health, political, economic, and diplomatic, are converging. The HIV epidemic, Xi's retreat, economic collapse, and global pushback reveal a nation in peril. Share your thoughts below as we uncover these pivotal shifts. When mountains fall and towns vanish. A comprehensive report on the Gansu Mudslide Disaster of 2025. On July 16, 2025, a freight train hurtling along the Longhai Railway in Gansu Province was violently derailed after colliding with a massive landslide triggered by days of unrelenting rainfall. Videos circulating on social media captured the harrowing scene. Sections of the train were ripped from the tracks as a cascade of soil, rock, and debris surged down the mountainside. The incident laid bare yet again the Chinese Communist Party's CCP persistent failure to fortify critical infrastructure in China's mountainous, disaster-prone regions. While citizens took to the internet to share footage and first-hand accounts of the catastrophe early in the day, the official response was characteristically sluggish. It wasn't until late afternoon that the Geological Disaster Emergency Center in Tianshui City acknowledged the event, and even then authorities insisted that no casualties have been reported. This claim, however, was met with widespread skepticism, as netizens and independent observers have grown increasingly distrustful of the CCP's long-standing practice of suppressing information. The rail company's customer service dismissed the derailment as a natural event rather than an accident, a convenient deflection often employed to absolve systemic negligence and inadequate disaster preparedness. By the time their statement was issued, multiple passenger services had been suspended, stranding thousands of travelers across the region. Passenger train Z378, for instance, was forced to turn back after reaching only its second stop from Xining, Qinghai Province. Dozens of other trains faced delays or cancellations, yet authorities downplayed the disruption as under control, adhering to a familiar CCP playbook: deny, deflect, and delay. It wasn't until 11:00 p.m. that the Urumqi railway station issued a belated confirmation stating that a massive landslide had struck between Yuanlong and Jianhe stations in Tianshui. A freight locomotive had collided with the falling debris, causing the lead engine to derail and halting all northbound traffic. The official report claimed that service was restored by 1:28 p.m. The same day, a statement met with disbelief given the lack of independent media access and real-time transparency. A region unprepared. The catastrophe unfolds. No one was prepared. No alarms sounded. No alerts were issued. It was just another gloomy afternoon during the unrelenting rainy season in Gansu Province. Sanju Valley, nestled in Danba County, lay cloaked in a thick layer of mist. Then, without warning, the ground began to tremble. A deep, rumbling roar reverberated from the heart of the mountains, followed by the deafening crash of earth tearing apart. A colossal chunk of the mountainside, estimated at over 260,000 cubic meters, broke loose and thundered downhill at terrifying speed. The landslide, a viscous torrent of mud and debris, obliterated everything in its path. A 1.2-kilometer stretch of National Highway G248 vanished beneath a suffocating blanket of sludge. 2 bridges collapsed into ruin. What remained were crumbling remnants choked in thick black dust. The Chongshan Tusa Mansion scenic area, once a vibrant tourist attraction drawing visitors from across China, was reduced to rubble in mere minutes. Ticket booths, souvenir shops, and parking lots were swept away as if they had never existed. Footage captured by local residents showed dense viscous sludge hurtling downhill like a dark tsunami, obliterating infrastructure and submerging everything in its path. Almost simultaneously, 3 additional landslides erupted in the vicinity, compounding the destruction. Water supply pipes serving 5 villages were destroyed, leaving thousands without access to clean water. The region's power grid and communication networks collapsed entirely, plunging an entire section of Danba County into a blackout. No signal, no lights, no contact with the outside world. Local authorities initially claimed there were no casualties, but this assertion was swiftly challenged online. Reports emerged of at least 4 people still missing and unreachable. One witness described a row of houses collapsing like dominoes. "People were still inside," she said. "No one made it out." In village centers 1 and 2, 133 residents from 63 households were evacuated just in time, narrowly escaping the deluge. Elsewhere, however, the story was grim. The water took everything a survivor wrote on social media. "People, livestock, homes, we just watched it all disappear." Roads turned into traps. The devastation was not confined to Sanju Valley. In Gumda Town, Wentrang County National Highway 350 suffered a similar fate. Around 800 p.m. on July 16th, approximately 1,800 cubic meters of mud came crashing down, blocking all access. With rain continuing to pour, emergency teams were forced to retreat due to the high risk of secondary collapses. A makeshift detour was opened the following afternoon, but it offered little relief to the isolated communities. On July 5th, another slide struck Long Bridge on Highway 318, obliterating the road in seconds. 3 cargo trucks were buried under the debris and only 1 has been recovered to date. In Tantran County alone, officials confirmed 3 deaths, 2 missing persons, and several minor injuries. Entire fields were destroyed, road networks erased, and villages cut off from the outside world. Eyewitness accounts from the abyss. Survivors' accounts painted a vivid picture of the horror. One resident recalled, "It came like a monster. No warning. Just a loud noise and then the mountain fell. Roads, cars, people gone in seconds." He described hearing screams followed by an eerie silence as homes collapsed before his eyes. Another survivor who had endured the Wenran earthquake years earlier compared the 2 disasters. This was worse. The mud was like a tidal wave. It buried cars completely. At night, we heard rocks slamming into metal over and over. The psychological toll was palpable as communities grappled with the sudden loss of homes, livelihoods, and loved ones. Infrastructure breakdown on all fronts. The landslides severed key transport arteries connecting Gansu to Sichuan, Yunnan, and Qinghai. Major bridges, including Weibridge Tantran Bridge and intersections with the Yanya Expressway, were completely cut off. Power phone lines and internet services were down in over a dozen towns, leaving residents stranded without access to basic services. China's National Weather Bureau reported a staggering 205 mm of rainfall in Yan within just 24 hours, the highest recorded nationwide. Red alerts were issued, but they came too late. The rain had already unleashed its worst. Stranded in tunnels, tourism in ruins. On Highway 247 leading to the picturesque Fairy Tale Road and Geoja Scenic Area, landslides trapped hundreds of tourists overnight. Some were forced to sleep inside dark, claustrophobic tunnels. A woman shared her harrowing ordeal. "We drove 20 minutes and ran into 7 landslides. Rocks cut our tires twice. A police convoy led us down an unfinished road to spend the night in a small town." The tourism industry, a vital economic lifeline for the region, was brought to its knees as scenic attractions were reduced to rubble and access routes rendered impassable. Yunnan's flash flood, nightmare. The devastation extended beyond Gansu. On July 2nd, a sudden flash flood ravaged Yun County, Lingong City, Yunnan. Entire districts were submerged under raging waters. Videos captured the terrifying scene of people and cars being swept away, with even rescue workers caught in the deluge. 2 tea factories critical to the livelihoods of local villages were destroyed. A farmer, his voice breaking, said, "My phone computer tea leaves, everything's gone. Just junk now. It took hours, but the damage will last for years." Human hands behind the mud. For years, experts have warned of the mounting risks in China's western highlands, driven not solely by nature but by human activity. German hydrologist Wang Yilua emphasized that severe soil erosion is not merely an act of nature, but a consequence of man-made decisions. Deforestation, reckless construction, blasting through hills, all of it weakens the land. Water can't seep in, so it floods and slides. Instead, he explained, Lua identified 4 key man-made factors fueling these disasters: destroyed vegetation and improper farming on steep terrain. Decades of deforestation and unsustainable agricultural practices have stripped hillsides of natural stabilizers like trees and root systems, leaving the soil vulnerable to erosion. Roads built without geological reinforcement. Many highways and bridges in the region were constructed with insufficient regard for the area's geological instability, making them prone to collapse during heavy rains. Leaking irrigation systems, raising groundwater levels. Poorly maintained irrigation infrastructure has led to excessive groundwater accumulation, destabilizing the soil and increasing the risk of landslides. Poor drainage that allows water to pool and trigger collapse. Inadequate drainage systems have exacerbated flooding, allowing water to accumulate and weaken the ground. These systemic failures, rooted in unchecked development and inadequate planning, have turned natural phenomena into preventable catastrophes. A pattern of negligence. The Gansu mudslide disaster of 2025 is not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern of systemic negligence. The CCP's centralized approach to disaster management has long been criticized for its lack of transparency and accountability. The delayed response to the Longhai railway derailment, coupled with the initial denial of casualties, mirrors previous incidents where authorities prioritized control over truth. The absence of independent media access further fuels distrust, as citizens rely on fragmented social media reports to piece together the reality of the situation. The rail company's dismissal of the derailment as a natural event reflects a deeper reluctance to acknowledge the role of poor infrastructure and inadequate disaster preparedness in exacerbating the crisis. The human toll. The human cost of the disaster is staggering. In Shenfeng County, Hubei, a city of 300,000 was submerged overnight as floodwaters surged over 2.5 meters, swallowing cars and homes. As the waters receded, residents were left with a wasteland of mud-caked streets, shattered belongings, and hollow eyes searching for hope. Entire communities were uprooted, their livelihoods erased in a matter of hours. The psychological scars will linger long after the physical debris is cleared, as survivors grapple with the loss of loved ones' homes and a sense of security. A call for accountability. The events of June and July 2025 will be remembered as a dark chapter in China's southwest, marked by relentless rains, collapsing mountains, and lives lost without a trace. The Gansu mudslide disaster exposed not only the fragility of the region's infrastructure, but also the systemic failures that allowed such a catastrophe to unfold. For years, experts like Wang Lua have sounded the alarm on the dangers of unchecked development, yet their warnings have gone unheeded. The CCP's insistence on downplaying the severity of the crisis, coupled with its refusal to address the root causes, has only deepened public distrust. As the region begins the long process of recovery, questions remain. How many lives could have been saved with better infrastructure? Why were early warning systems not in place? And when will the authorities prioritize the safety of citizens over the preservation of their own image? The answers, like so much else in the aftermath of the disaster, remain buried beneath the mud, buried beneath the mud, buried.
I poured over 4 million yuan into a home in Suzhou, thinking I was building a future. But 5 months later, I'm stuck with a property I can't sell, even after slashing the price by 60%. I dropped the price from 3 million to 2.6 million, then down to 1.98 million. Still not a single serious buyer. Just yesterday, an agent told me someone finally came to view it, but they offered only 1.9 million. If I accept and repay the mortgage, I'll be left with just 50,000 yuan. My 750,000 yuan down payment is gone, and I'll even lose another 70,000 yuan in agency fees. I thought that was rock bottom, but it got worse. The buyer walked away and bought the same layout in the same complex for 100,000 yuan less. Is this what bargain price means now? Friends who bought homes a few years ago, how are you holding up? Across China, the real estate market is crumbling. Even in first-tier cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. Listings are flooding the market, but nobody's buying. Homeowners are panicking. Prices are in freefall. In Shanghai, agents report price drops of 40%, 50%, even 70% inside the inner ring. Suzhou, just 100 kilometers from Shanghai, is in freefall too. Once the crown jewel of China's manufacturing sector, it's now seeing massive economic decline as foreign firms pull out, and housing prices are collapsing. Let's talk about the Shanghai crash. Some homes in Pudong that once sold for sky-high prices are now 10 million yuan cheaper. Even those old, broken, tiny units are tumbling fast. I've worked in Shanghai's loan industry for years. Clients cry to me every day, especially those who bought in 2019 or 2020. They're still paying their mortgages, but their homes have lost 30% of their value. Let me tell you my story. My husband and I left Henan for Shanghai over a decade ago. In 2021, we used all our savings and paid 1.1 million yuan down for a tiny 98-year-old home in Pudong. We borrowed another 115 million. Every month, we pay 6,100 yuan kin in mortgage. People say these old, broken, small houses aren't worth it, but we had no choice. The landlord wanted to sell the apartment we were renting, and buyers were constantly coming in, disrupting our lives. We'd moved 7 or 8 times in 10 years. We just wanted a place to call home. But because we had an old loan in another city, this counted as our second home, meaning a 70% down payment. And back then, prices were soaring. We were terrified we'd never afford a home if we waited. Now we're stuck with a crumbling, overpriced flat and a sinking feeling that we've been trapped in a nightmare with no exit. We bought a home in Suzhou. Now we can't even sell it without paying money out of pocket. We never imagined one decision would leave us stranded at the top of a collapsing market. After receiving the property certificate, prices started dropping nonstop. Last month, we found out that a unit downstairs, same size, same floor plan, was sold for just over 1 million yuan less than what we paid. It was also a 6th-floor unit. The dust of history fell on us like a mountain. We sold our home, and I cried after signing the contract. After nearly a year of listing, we finally got an offer online. I didn't expect it to go through so quickly, and after signing, I broke down in tears. The agent told us the buyer only offered 1.1 million. My grandfather was furious. He grabbed the phone and said, "Not a penny less than 1.2 million. They bargained back and forth until midnight, finally settling at 121 million. But after the agency took its 15,000 yuan fee, we only received 1.195 million, still short of our original goal. Shanghai's housing market is in freefall. In Shanghai, both new and second-hand homes are flooding the market. In June, developers launched emergency clearance campaigns, slashing prices by hundreds of thousands, even millions. One luxury riverside apartment on Nanjing East Road, originally priced at 10 million yuan, is now just 3.78 million, a 72% drop. It even comes with 2 large terraces and stunning views. Yet buyers are skeptical. Why is this so cheap? What's the catch we're trying? The myth that housing prices only rise is now shattered. We tried to sell, but it would cost us money to do it. We listed our home in Suzhou for 1.3 million. After months of silence, the agent finally called with a buyer offering 1.1 million. But when we checked, we still owed 1.1 million on the loan. If we sold, we'd actually lose money, on top of losing our down payment, mortgage payments, and renovation costs. We'd have to pay 80,000 yuan just to walk away. We hesitated. My husband suggested asking the buyer to raise their offer by 80,000. But the next day, the agent told us the buyer had already bought the same layout in the neighboring building for 1.1 million. That's when our hearts sank. Homes are now as cheap as cabbage, and still nobody wants them. We're not desperate. We can still survive if we budget carefully. So we've decided not to sell, for now. But deep down, we regret ever buying this home. If we had waited, we could have saved so much pain. In Suzhou's Shangruij community, once developed as a high-end residential project by Vanke, a 130 square meter home once sold for 5.9 million yuan. Today, it's down to 3.5 million. One local, Mr. Guo, told overseas media, "The real drop is over 60%. My place used to be worth 35,000 yuan per square meter. Now it's under 15,000, and no one will even take it for 10,000. We lost 1 million yuan in a year and haven't told our parents." We're a young couple, both born after 1995. Before our wedding, my in-laws helped us buy a home in Suzhou, paying the down payment and taking out a loan. The house cost nearly 3 million at the peak. This year, the price dropped by over 1 million. It hurts like bleeding from the heart. We haven't told our parents-in-law the truth. We just said, it dropped a little. But this little was their entire life savings from a small rural town. We considered selling, but then we'd have to rent. What about when we have kids and they need to go to school? So for now, we just try to hold on and pretend that everything is fine. When buying a second-hand house, don't rely solely on the paper property certificate. It might be invalid. Starting July 11th, Suzhou allows online property transfers without retrieving the original landlord's certificate. Unlike offline transfers where staff would take back the old certificate, online transfers are done via app, and the original certificate remains with the seller. To address this, the Real Estate Registration Center will publish an invalidation notice, but many buyers may not read it. As a result, the seller may still hold an invalid certificate. So when buying, always check both the electronic ownership certificate and the electronic ID photo to ensure the property is valid before making the deal. The four swords more terrifying than the housing price plunge will really come in 2025. These four things are related to Miami, job, and wallet. If you are still spending money lavishly, please watch this video carefully. The era of the 3,000 yuan monthly salary is really coming. The work that used to pay 5,000 yuan will now pay you 3,000 yuan. You can take it or leave it. In the future, there will be 3,000 yuan jobs everywhere. Don't be fooled by those boasting on the internet. The truth is that the average monthly income of 1.172 billion people in the country is less than 3,000 yuan, and only 1% of them have a monthly income of more than 10,000 yuan. The wallets of most ordinary people are empty. Second, the number of job seekers has exploded. Last year, there were 11.78 million college graduates, and this year there are even more. Last year's wave has not yet been digested, and now there are so many people scrambling to deliver food or drive Didi. If you still have a job now, just bear with your boss when he scolds you. Being able to enjoy the air conditioning in a cubicle is already a blessing. How many young people in Shanghai quit their jobs out of anger and can't find a new job for half a year? Now, having a job is a blessing. Third, don't think about investment. Money will be lost wherever you put it. Real estate no longer preserves value. Stocks are fun to play with, and the interest on financial products is pitifully low. If you think of opening a store or investing, you're thinking too much. The global entrepreneurship survival rate in 2025 is trend, and that's just the survival rate. The money in your pocket can either turn into fluff or be wasted on investment. With just these two options, how miserable are you? Blogger Dawei said that fourth, Chinese men really can't support their families. There is a term in economics called labor support, which refers to how many people one person can support through work. The United States can support 5 people, Japan and South Korea can support 3.5 people, and China can only support 1.1. This means a man can barely support himself even if he works hard. The housing prices in Shanghai have become a huge joke. If they continue to fall, how many people will face financial problems?